join me in saying the pledge, and then Steph will have a prayer for us. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please pray with me. Our mighty Father in heaven, we're so grateful to live in this country that we do. And with that, as elected officials comes a great responsibility to make the decisions that you would want us to make for the citizens of Wells County. Please be with us tonight and guide us in the direction that you would want us to go. I also ask that you be with our first responders, military, police, and all those that put their lives on the line every day for us to enjoy these freedoms that we have. I say these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thanks. Please be seated. Okay. Welcome to the Tuesday, October 5th, Wells County Council meeting. We have all council members present and accounted for, so we have quorum. First up, we have meetings from our September 7th meeting. Did everybody have a chance to look over the minutes? And if so, I'll look for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
I'll second.
We have a motion second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, approve that. Next up is transfers. We have auditor, coroner, clerk, project income, highway administration, probation, CARES Act, and community corrections grant. We'll take all these as one unless anybody has any questions transferring any of the items. Does anybody have any comments or questions or concerns? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfers.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Takes care of the transfers. Okay, next up, we have additional appropriations. Just a few of these. First is the sheriff for 2092-25. Sheriff, what is that?
It's a CADA grant that we were awarded, but they made it out to the county, so that was deposited into the general fund. We're just asking for the amount of the grant.
Got it. And we have economic development lit, bridges. That's a carryover. Is that correct, Nate?
Yeah, we're looking to take the 2020 money over to 21. I meant to do it over this summer, but here it is October already.
And this is money out of the commissioners?
This is the
line
commissioner's lit bridges. It's essentially money that I didn't
Which we used to call
use
seeded years ago.
Yeah, so it's just seeded money. I'm just asking to carry that over into this year and try to use that on a few open contracts.
That's still around about 500,000 a year, right?
They've been holding that 500,000 a year just because of how some invoicing came in last year. It just left a large amount at the end of the year. So.
And then we have some minor ones from the CASA grant. Anybody have any questions on additionals? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to approve the additionals that we as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Sheriff, you're up.
Yep.
Evening.
Good evening.
I'll give you the monthly report for September for activity. Activity has definitely been up this summer and as the last couple of weeks for sure. We do have 70 inmates in jail. When I left work today, 24 of those are pretrial superior, 21 pretrial circuit, 13 F6, and 5 DOC. Also attached to that is the generated income for 2021, including the updates for September. Nothing out of the ordinary there, other than, again, guns from the feed stopped in July, so we haven't heard any more on reimbursements from the state yet, but at some point we're supposed to be getting reimbursed from the state as part of their budget, so. Any questions on activity or generated income?
What do you see as the impetus for the increased activity?
Well, there's a lot of warrants coming out, seems like for people either violating probation or other things, so, if you look, the number of inmates booked is up from 68 this time last year to 85. Our activities, just kind of winding down to that summer stuff. Burglaries started picking up a little bit here as of late, and we had several arrests over a big string of burglaries that were all connected with multiple people, and we ended up actually tying in 2 or 3 burglaries from about a year ago that were solved out of it too, so we had a lot of arrests through that as well, so those are just some highlights of some of the things that have increased those numbers.
Okay.
The only other update I got for you is we met with Amoresco and the construction manager for a kind of pre-construction kickoff meeting on Wednesday of last week. Jackson Construction was also there to kind of talk about timelines when they were going to start kicking off things. We've had people in and out of the buildings, different contractors that have subcontract work through what they're doing. They're going to start moving stuff in on site probably yet this month. Equipment and containers and, you know, all the stuff that they do. Their goal is to start what they call their phase 1 the first week in November. So it's right around the corner that they're going to start doing some masonry work and closing off some the main garage door areas and stuff. So their main goal is to get our temporary intake area up and going so that they can seal off what the whole part that's getting, the big portion of intake that's getting renovated. So that's Jackson's main goal. All the other stuff, they're gonna start doing lighting, water conservation, and HVAC probably yet this year. So I know the roof probably will not be done until next spring. They can't even get materials for the roof right now. Parking lot stuff, again, probably spring next year, that time frame. The major construction stuff, they'll be kicking in starting in November, so we'll be organized chaos, hopefully, so out there.
Cool.
So,
Hey, Scott, if everything was come together, like, you know, all the moons and planets, everything perfect, any idea, did they give you any ballpark idea when they think it could be completed?
yeah, on Jackson's portion, they're looking at being done by, hopefully, at least by the end of August. So
Okay,
by
so-
September of next year, it should be completed, as far as their stuff, so. But again, that's their timeline.
Sure.
They're not doing all the work. They're doing just most of the main construction
So
stuff.
basically a year.
Yeah, and
technically.
Amoresco's kind of always held that. They said that they're looking at about a year's time frame to get it done, so. But I'm glad that they're starting that early because of materials and all those things. It seemed like in the beginning that was going to delay everything.
Yeah.
But, so, as far as that's all I got to report at this time, so.
Thank you.
Hopefully, next time I come in, I'm not covered in dust.
Progress.
Okay.
All right?
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
The next item we have is to approve the sheriff's salary contract, which you guys, I believe, have a copy in front of you. I believe the commissioners have already signed off on this.
Yeah, commissioners approved it
They
yesterday.
have approved that, and I
Yes.
believe that would have been gone through during budget meetings. Does anybody have any questions on that?
22, sure.
Here, do we need a motion for that? Okay, I'll hear a motion, entertain a motion for the sheriff's salary contract.
So moved. Oh, sorry.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So no. Okay, regional sewer district project updates. Assume that's Nate? Okay.
They won, Lee.
Well, I got the extra chair for you. You got-
Finally.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hey, so,
So, who wants to start with just project updates? I know if you've been out and about, you've seen kind of updates for the phase 1 projects, both in Murray and Liberty Center. Murray is getting closer to on schedule. Liberty Center is very slow going. Certainly, I know there's been complaints about 300 West being closed. There have been hopes to keep that open all the way through, but unfortunately, because of the poor soils, the trench boxes can't just be used as safety measures. They're essentially shoring, so they've got to disassemble them every time they move them. So that's really holding them up in their progress. So we're hoping they'll keep moving along, but there's been supply chain issues for Liberty Center. Just for everybody, please be patient. I think there's a lot of drivers that are going through the area that aren't truly locals, and they're driving through the locals' yards to get there, and that's gonna wear thin on the residents that are there, and that's not necessarily the contractor's fault. It's just, please try to avoid those areas for us, but,
Do you have any idea on a time frame on it?
I'm hoping to get a better project scheduled prior to the RSD's board meeting on the 18th.
Okay.
So I've put that to the construction site representative to have something ready so that the board has that to at least review. They're gonna have to discuss the use of any liquidated damages if they run up against deadlines, and so the contractor's gonna have to make an explanation as to why. They certainly have, not weather concerns, but supply chain concerns as far as that. So they're gonna have to make that case to the board for any extensions that would be justifiable. So thankfully, it's not that we have torn up Liberty Center for an extra 2 or 3 months, they just delayed the start. So for the most part, everybody will see the same sort of window as far as disruption for it. But those projects are moving along for it. Hopefully Murray should still stay on schedule is what we understand.
It'll be, yeah.
So I think that's gonna actually meet its deadline. It's just probably going to be the area of Liberty Center that we're gonna be looking at dragging on a little bit. So
Can you give us an update on what those schedules are, when those projects
I
are
think
supposed to be
everything
done?
was supposed to be done in November of this year. So they were looking at that and trying to button the project up at the end of December because they have paving work that was supposed to be done. So that's gonna be difficult for them to finish up, is really gonna be the issue for Liberty Center. So there's gonna be a delay in that one. So, and that's why there's gonna be discussions that are gonna go on in October as to.
But for Murray, that's supposed to go down 350 as well, right?
Yeah, no, that's gonna be directional boring, and so when
Okay.
that starts to happen, that's gonna be done in 300 and 400-foot sections,
Okay.
not like what's going on in Liberty Center
Not
where they're
good.
doing 20-foot stick of pipe, and it's taking them a day of
Right.
wrestling with,
Okay.
trench box, application, so, and the road falling in while they're doing it, so.
Okay.
That's the hardship that they're running through for that project.
Is that trench, I got 2 or 3 calls about a sinkhole.
Oh, the road itself is, I mean, where they've got their saw cuts for the actual trench for that work, there's 3 feet of base underneath the road lane on the east side, that northbound lane. The subsoil is all just falling in. So that's why it's really
So
unsafe
that's
for
why they're-
drivers. Yeah, we can't have traffic on that because there's nothing, literally nothing under the asphalt on that east side. So that's why, for safety reasons, we're absolutely trying to keep people off of it. And so if after hours, they try to box those areas in and block it off, but if people are moving barricades, that's at their own risk. And so certainly, we want to try to keep people away from those areas, and the contractor's not opening large areas up because that opens that up more risk for the residents, so.
So it's really not sinkholes, it's just.
No, it's just,
It's just
when
the
you're
edges
digging a
will
hole,
not
and
stay.
usually when you dig a trench in clay, it'll just
Yep.
form up and you'll just pull the trench as a safety measure, but every time they dig the hole, it's just falling against the trench box, and then they've got all that soil weight that they gotta pull the box out from.
Yeah, I
So,
know.
it's-
Just the tile, yeah, and
It's this.
if you hit a sand area, guess what? You have a
Well,
big problem.
they had a sand vein in the first hole they dug for the first manhole, and there's like 3 different types of clay. So it's balling up and falling apart, so it's not cohesive. The clay, it's all clay, but it's not cohesive to itself. So it's this odd mix of very poor clay soils, and so it's exciting. So it's good to know going into that, what's going on with the road in the future. But there's gonna be a 12-foot trench of rock, at least on one lane when we're done. So that's at least something to help out for our project. But that's kind of just as an update of what's going on with the current phase of the project. Certainly, we appreciate what work the county has done with us. something that we've got right now. We've got word back, and you may have heard about it. I made a report to the commissioners yesterday that SRF did award the Wells County Regional Sewer District $5 million out of their state water infrastructure fund. And so the county was one, Wells County was one of just a few that received funds out of that. And actually, we didn't even ask for the full $5, but they awarded us $5 million in consideration for the $2 million in ARP that we had set aside. So they matched that plus, and now we're just waiting for the final financing package for our phase 2 and 3 projects. So that's
What does that consist of? What communities?
the phase 2 projects are currently Craigville, Thompson, and Kingston. So that's the projects right now that they're actively surveying and designing, with the expectation we wanted to be ready for those areas to move forward. So I'm happy to say that with that commitment and ARP plan, that we were able to get $5 million more of state ARP money set aside for Wells County to move those projects forward. Now, depending on what, that doesn't finance all of phase 2, that's not enough to finish that, so we still have to wait for what other funding and financing is going to be available to the community before the board's able to make a decision on what will finally be phase 2. And hopefully that'll even set the tone for phase 3 projects, which are the Keystone, Petroleum, and Wrightsburg area. So, and that all also depends on Bluffton, because we're working with Bluffton and their financing. So we haven't heard yet what offerings they've been given from the state. We'd hope to have that information today, if I recall, but.
Well, we've hoped to have that information for several months, quite honestly.
About 2 meetings that way.
And that's what we've been told, but hopefully we find out what that is. You know, one of the most important things, and I can't stress enough, to thank the county council. I want to make sure you understand what a role the county council and Wells County has played in helping the district get started. It's very difficult to start a sewer district, because the sewer district, by its nature, you can form the sewer district, you can appoint the members, and you can say, okay, now go out there and do a project, but the district literally doesn't have any money. And it doesn't have any money until it has customers and it can collect rates. And you can't have customers and collect rates until you've engineered a project and you've got finance, the engineering done, and you've been given a grant award and you've closed on that and you've started the project. So it's very difficult to start sewer districts. And so without, the help of Wells County and, some money, seed money from the commissioners, and from, which ultimately has to be appropriated by the council, it's impossible to even start a district. And so, and the other thing that was absolutely key, and it's something that Adams County, we did in Adams County, and the Adams County Council did the same thing, was the $500,000 line of credit that enabled the district to get projects engineered so that they had projects ready to go when you go to ask for these grant funds, because you've got to have something ready to go in order for them to give you money. And so that was absolutely critical, and that played a big part in the money that Wells County has got to get Project 1 going. That's underway right now. And so I know one of the claims, we've sent in the claims to get the funds to reimburse at Wells County for that money for Project 1. And then, I don't know where we stand, but I'm sure we'll come back and ask to borrow that money again to engineer Project 2 and 3. So that saves the district a considerable amount of money. I know on the first project that Adams County did, we had to do we didn't have that money from the county council. In fact, we hadn't even thought about asking at that point. And we had to do what's called a bond anticipation note. And anybody, schools do those. And so that's where you go out and you borrow $500,000 on the come, and you say, hey, we're going to do a project, will you loan us $500,000? And you have to do that in the form of a bond. And the issuance cost for that can be $60,000, $70,000. And plus the interest, as soon as you start to draw. And it's usually Bank of New York always ends up doing it, and so you're paying them interest from the first draw. But you have cost of issuance, and I think for Adams County, it was $50,000-$60,000 that we paid just to borrow that $500,000. And when you wrap your head around it, you think, well, that's a ridiculous, that sounds like a usurious interest rate. But that's what it costs. And so we did that on the first project, and then come around on the next project where we were needing to borrow funds. We had the idea, and we went to the county council and said, we would really like to save these issuance costs. And they agreed, and then they did the same thing that you've all done, and that saves the district considerable money. And so, I would expect that the district will probably come back, they'll repay the loan on project one and probably come back and say, okay, can you loan us the money so that we can engineer the second phase? And then that'll close probably next May. I think we closed in May of this year, or April.
Late March, early April.
So
for that.
there's usually 2 closing dates per year. It's December or May. And so they'll come around and close again on May and then turn around and then pay back Wells County. So anyway, we definitely appreciate the support of Wells County. And you see as these projects go along, you know, it's a hard thing to do to go and tell individuals that you've got to have a $95 sewer bill. Nobody wants to pay that, and they don't want to do that, and they don't see the benefit of it. But as time goes on, especially these communities that are older, that have these concentration of houses on small lots, and those septic systems are old, and we know where that septic's going, and it's not good. And when you start to make those improvements, then all of a sudden, other individuals come along and say, we'd like to connect, and then you got folks that all of a sudden say, well, now we can build a house and we can connect, and we don't have to put in a $20,000 septic system. And so we've seen that happen now in Adams County, and it's amazing how many customers are being added, and you see economic development, and that just happens over time. So I guess be patient. I think you'll see that's happening in Wells County. It's a great thing. We've got a great partnership with the city of Bluffton. Can't thank them enough. We've got a good treatment agreement with them, very favorable treatment rate. And so,
As there's more connections to any one line, can the actual fee to any individual homeowner come down if there's enough additional connections over time?
over time, if the district's overhead can get to the point where they can handle there's 3 components to the rate: debt service, overhead maintenance, and repair and treatment costs. All 3 of those things go into the rate. And so we've got a very good treatment rate. Overhead maintenance and repair, you just have to budget for, because even though at the outset it may not be real significant, you gotta have that money set back, because you're gonna have to replace pumps, grinders, you're gonna have it. And then you have to have your debt service, which is just like your mortgage payment. And so you have to budget that, and that's set. And then whether it's USDA or SRF, they require you to keep a debt service reserve so that you've got enough money there to make the payment in the event your revenues aren't what you thought they'd be. And so that is how you actually set your rate. You back into it based upon project cost, debt service, treatment cost, and then your estimated overhead treatment and repair, and you actually back into that rate. So that is one of the things that the district has talked about. They're hoping the money that we're seeing being awarded right now, and I'll say between Adams County and Wells County, the money that they've received for these projects over the last year and a half, 2 years is astounding. It's a lot more money than what we normally see. Usually you're lucky to get 45% grant, and then it's usually 55% loan. And that's what we had on our first project with USDA. And now we're seeing projects where infrastructure money is being cut loose, and this SWIFT money, $5 million, and then hopefully we may get another 5 or 6 from SRF. So all of that can help reduce the amount the district has to borrow, lowers their payment. That's the only way really to cut rates, is to be able to do the math. And that's why you have Baker Tilly, which used to be Umball, I'm still used to call them Umball, but we have Baker Tilly, and so they do the math, and they say this is what you have to have. And of course the district has to have money to operate, You know, you have to have the back end, the accounting, the billing, the superintendent. You have to have somebody that, when somebody calls and you got a pump that goes out, you gotta go out and fix it. And so you have all that expense as well. And the district is running on a shoestring budget. It is tight.
Nate,
Very
is
tight.
Mr. Brown making any headway on delinquencies?
We're starting to, yeah. I think we had a situation where we were looking at almost 20% delinquencies at one point with about 30 customers. And I think within a month, we had gotten that back down under 20. We were a delinquent. Some headwinds that we're running into as the sewer district, obviously, is that as a governmental entity, history works against us. And so there's a segment of the population that doesn't believe that the sewer district is serious. They get the notice and throw it away. And they're like, I don't think they're going to actually do the things that they say they're going to do. And what's the hardship of at least putting some quiet resistance to it. And so that's something that the board's gonna have to decide as far as, are they going to rise up to that and take that challenge? It's not gonna be pleasant, unfortunately. But because of the amounts of money we're talking about and that tight budget, filing liens has been discussed in the paper and by the board for multiple meetings is something that, it's not an immediate fix, but at least it draws a line in the sand and protects the debt service and protects the interest of those who aren't paying their
That
claims.
information is on the bill too.
Yep, so the notices go out regularly to the customers, and so those that are being affected by it. I will admit that on the public hearings that were had for the phase 2 and 3 projects, I was shocked by how many people were the response from them was, finally. They almost didn't believe that that something like that would happen. Finally, something's gonna be done. And they're looking at it as their homestead and their real estate, and they're just afraid of condemnations, issues finally just coming out. They were just kind of holding their breath for a disaster to happen, and with us looking at solutions, they had this sense of relief that was brought by many of them. Now, there's some that don't think it's actually an issue, but there's others who are saying, yeah, I'm tired of smelling sewage in my backyard.
I agree with that. There's also a small segment of very low income people that are really worried, really worried. And I don't know if anybody has a perfect solution for that
Oh,
yet.
no, and.
So is there any kind of financial help for people who, because what is the average rate right now? I can't recall, was it? For sewage.
Across for the sewer district?
Yeah,
The rates, our
that
current
they're
rate's
charging.
95.
So about $100,
So it's
so
almost
for a
$100.
family, it's $1,200 a year.
Yeah.
So it could be a real burden for some
Big hit.
people.
That's a big hit.
So is there I know there's financial relief for everything else out there. Is there anything for,
Very limited. It would only be
Okay.
through township assistance.
Okay.
Township trustees would have
Township
to
trustees.
get
Again, to
involved.
bring the trustees to try to help. There's USDA grants, but usually the poverty line you have to be below is even farther than people expect.
right,
And so the assistance just isn't there. Things that we've discussed trying to do internally or bringing back to council, because you've been so good, it's hard to ask for other
Mhm.
favors, but partnerships between us. I know the commissioners, even simple little things have been very helpful. I mean, the commissioners pay for the cell phone for the district for the end of the year. I mean, that's $50 or $40 a month. It's just, that's somebody's interim rate that the commissioners are covering. That's those sort of things where we can find partnerships to work together between the county sewer district and the county as an avenue, because this is somewhat an economic development engine. We're seeing that, and what I have under this is one of the kind of the silver lining of a difficult project is that Wells County was awarded just under $900,000 in a stormwater grant for the town of Murray, a project that couldn't have happened without the sewer district essentially eliminating the sanitary sewer problem in that area. We've had complaints about it. There's flooding that's been an issue to the northeast corner. Really doing a stormwater project in that area wouldn't be legal for us because it was all combined sewers. Well, now with the sewer separation, we can actually go in and fix those problems, and we got a grant that's essentially 80% of the construction and engineering cost for that area. And so that's a fantastic little feather in our cap of saying we did one project, then we can step in and do the next piece. And it's part of the longer vision the county to implement those sort of fixes. That the sewer district isn't something we put upon the residents of that area, but it is something to allow us to do the next part of a bigger fix for the community. Because the question's been, well, what about flooding? What do I do with my stormwater? Well, just pump your brakes and wait a little bit. Once we deal with the sewer, then the county can start looking at this between the surveyor's office and the highway department to make those fixes. And thankfully, we've got that one already lined up. So,
Curious to know, in phase one, are the customers, are they responsible for the taps, or is that in your project? I'm just curious, because I know you got a monthly bill, but is there a tap fee?
You know,
that
there's
comes in?
generally a $2,000 tap fee for,
Are
but
they
for
responsible
everybody,
for their own
but
taps?
for everybody in the process, in the project, that tap fee is waived. They are responsible to decommission their septic tank and make the connection from their home to the district's line.
So
That
they
is
have to
their
get their own
responsibility.
contractor to do that then? So
Yes.
there will be that
There is
cost
some
coming
cost,
in.
yes, to
Okay.
make the connection. There's no
I didn't know what
tap
your
fee for the
project, what
district.
you had there.
yeah, there's no fee. There'd be an inspection fee. And the reason that the property owners have to do that work is because it's their own system. So SRF can't give the
It only
district
goes
grant
to a
money.
certain point that
Yeah,
they're
so
responsible.
so the only way the district is able to go onto the private property is if they're giving an easement for like a grinder station. And so they can go back onto their property for infrastructure that the sewer district will own and maintain. So SRF wouldn't necessarily pay for any of that extra work. And
So as you go
the
forward
district
into the
can.
project, those will be the issues
Yep,
you'll be
so
dealing
those are
with
the
to make
things that
sure
we'll be
they're
working with the
actually-
property
Yeah,
owners.
is there a time frame in which they have to do that?
Yeah,
90
Yes.
days after.
90 days?
after the
After it's
completion,
available.
or
After they
go by.
receive a notice to connect,
Okay.
the
Yep.
district will send a notice to connect to the project's residents in that project area that they need to make their connection, and they'll have instructions. And if you run into weather issues, the board can extend that timeline, you know, and we've had that happen, where because of weather, it wasn't practical, or there weren't enough contractors. But as a general rule, it's 90 days, and then the board can review that to see if there are reasons why that should be extended.
Do you have any idea what the cost is for that for a homeowner? I mean, have somebody come in and have to connect them?
Well, and that varies a lot depending on the residents, obviously. So if you've got a long run, if you, for that, or if you've got a lot of trees in the area, you'd have to be somewhat creative to it. There's been scare numbers thrown around of $8,000, I think, that's scare everybody. We've never been able to validate that.
Okay.
For those that are economy minded, that you can actually do that work yourself. There's nothing in the statute that says that a property owner can install that if they have the wherewithal, the means, the methods to work with each other. We have tried to encourage people that are in financial constraints to try to get together, give your names to the superintendent so that we can at least keep a ledger, and then we can maybe find some charities that would want to do a project for somebody that's kind of meets that sort of a means test. But we're really looking at, it's like $15 a foot for some of these, I think, is the installation cost. So depending on where your length is, if you're in town,
Okay.
it's gravity, that's very reasonable. But the property owner still would have to pump out their septic tank. What we've tried to encourage residents that have come in is that if they're concerned about that cost, get with your neighbors so that all three of your tanks get pumped out at the same time. And then you get one trip charge, and then there's some economy there because the tankers are far larger than just one septic tank in size. So there's ways that property owners, if they're mindful of it and they look at that as an opportunity to find ways to save money, there's a lot of time between today and when that connection notice is going out to think about it. If they get the connection notice and they've given it no thought, then it is panic and they're hurrying to do something, and they'll make a more expensive decision. So we've tried to work with residents that reach out to us to try to find ways to make this as economical as possible. And to get list of contractors, I know LA or Lewis has been looking at contractors in the area to make sure that they're available to do the work and when they're able to do the work so that they can try to group projects up. It's perfect for small excavators to come in and do a Saturday job for a project for somebody. And if they can set up 2 or 3 houses, then they can park it in one yard and move to the next one, and there's less mobilization costs associated with that. And that'll help kind of some economy of scale from that standpoint, but. yeah.
Something to also, I guess, think about is you have to differentiate between the grant funds that the district gets and the administrative cost of the district. The grant funds that the district gets, and it's, sizable amounts, $500,000 from SWIFT, another probably
Or $5 million SWIFT.
$5 million from SWIFT, and probably another $5 million from SRF. All of those funds only go towards project-related costs.
Right, not
Okay,
administration.
The construction side.
the district doesn't get that money to use for district administrative costs.
Right.
And so, in order to keep rates down, it's important that the district have revenue coming in, or, and if it's possible, that the commissioners could allocate some seeded funds to the district for administrative expenses to help defray the pressure on the district to have rates where they are. I mean, if you want rates to stay where they are or try to get rates down, then one way to do that is for, economic development revenues to be used to help the district cover their costs, so that, because they can't use those other monies to pay their bills. They can only pay their bills through fees.
And you don't get that 95 until the connection's made, right? It's
Yeah,
Right.
no, right now they're working at a $35
Yeah, it's a
a month.
Yeah,
prorated, it's a
interim rate.
prorated interim.
Mhm.
And even then, the interim rate is somewhat higher than I think the district would like to be offering, but since there's no other revenue that's there to use, we'd be using what's been done to cover operating expenses is to use that line of credit. And so that creates a gap of what's fundable or refundable.
So is it $35 to bridge the gap there, is that what people are deficient on right now, or what's, when you talk about?
Correct.
Yes.
So the
those-
people with the
there are
20,
people
it's
that are
not the
paying
full,
35.
because they're not attached yet, so they're probably thinking, hey, I'm
Yeah,
not
it's like,
attached, why am I
Just-
paying?
Exactly, that's
Why am I
what.
paying?
Which I somewhat can understand that, that if I'm not using a service, why am I paying $35 a
That's
month?
Hook me up
question
and
that-
That's
then,
the,
So
That's a
Then they'll
question
be more
everyone's
willing to
getting.
pay.
I can be a little sympathetic
Yeah.
towards that one, but yeah.
and it's directly to those operating expenses, because
Right.
we don't have, other than the money borrowed from the council that we're trying to refund, there's not revenue to be spent to pay for, because it costs money even to send the bills out. The
Right.
bills are thrown away, it costs money to mail out to them, and so that's, I mean, it's funny, but it's embarrassing that you're spending money and then website access and the meetings that go on and the individuals involved, there's expenses just in operating
It's
that.
a startup business.
That are
Yeah.
essentially there, and it's not a for-profit, there's not a big payout, it's made up of a volunteer board, and there's not big money in that. So unfortunately, those, and even small internal grants between the county and the district to cover those expenses have big payback for it, because you're talking about 200 customers right now. It doesn't take too much to look at the math of what $5 a month, $10 a month impacts across those customers that are gonna pay that, what that impact is. And an unsung heroes of some of this has been the property owners that are in these areas that are starting to see the opportunities. I know there's properties that are vacant that actually have offers on them. I hear about that through the grapevine of this property here that looks like it's empty. There's interested parties looking to buy this or buy that. I've had individuals ask, realtors ask about properties in areas, or an owner doesn't want to be there because they don't want to pay the sewer bill, but there's somebody ready to buy it tomorrow.
Right.
So, and so we're eager to see some of that
Mhm.
investment, so. But
Thank you.
certainly
Okay.
you're worth giving an update here. Sorry it takes so long to go through all that.
Yeah,
No, it's
I
good.
appreciate the updates.
So thank you all very much for the support of the district, and I know there's plenty of other opportunities for us.
The board,
Okay.
as a member of the board, we do thank you for all the help that you've given us, and to echo what Mark said, if it wasn't for commissioners and the county council, we'd have never got
Yeah.
our feet off the
But
ground.
hopefully we
I
can
know that from
create some
experience.
economic development and more homes in the county. Hopefully we can
right,
create that
right.
through
Yeah.
some of these projects.
There- there's another-
Solve some environmental
Yeah.
problems, obviously that was the
There's another
impetus.
goal that we're shooting for, and that's to eliminate complaints that the health department gets because of
Right.
sewage in these small towns. That's,
Oh, Mom, it's a.
she's gone.
She
But she-
Get tired of listening to you guys.
Well, if you ever get the itch to support the district in more financial ways, you feel free to call us in. We'll give you a story and let you know where we're at and where the opportunities are there. But it has been, it's certainly been a labor. I know it's not exactly your county engineer's job to do this stuff, but I saw an opportunity to do that. And already we've got our first opportunity to do a stormwater project and road project. And so I felt it was important to participate in that with a little arm twisting from the commissioners. So I'm glad to see these things happen, and I think as you get familiar with these projects and what can be done, you're talking about between the first phase of over $6.6 million, I got $5 million in SWIFT, we're anticipating over $5 million more dollars. I mean, you're talking $16.6 million potentially. We'll see where we're at. That dwarfs some of the transportation grants and any two that we've done. I mean, it's the next biggest section for us to go after for infrastructure.
Yeah, we had a project area in Adams County that was in the first project, and it was the town of, well, that's not a town, it was the area of Rivar, nicknamed Bobo. And there was just a handful of, I think there was less than 100, what was there, 60 connections?
60 connections, there's probably 60 there and 30 along the road to get to it.
Not a lot of connections, and USDA actually made us, back at the time, take that area out of the project because dollar for dollar, it was the most expensive area to sewer. And so we had to take it out. And because we didn't have enough grant funds, and it wasn't gonna make sense. The rate would have to have been higher. And so we took it out of the project. But we had it engineered, and we went around another year and applied for funding again, and they came back, and this was for another bunch of projects, and SRF says, well, we'll give you the money, all the money for these projects, and which ones are ready to go. Well, none of them were. They wanted to give us $10 million, but we didn't have anything engineered. And so we said, well, we've got Bobo engineered, so we blew the dust off and pulled it off the shelf, and we said, we can do that one, but we said, the only way we can do that project is if you give us all the money, 100% grant, which we thought they'll never do. And so it went in, came back, and they said, okay, we'll do it. So they gave us 100% grant money for that project, and we got it done and in. One of the concerns always, all along, for that area was, low income. There were places that had been foreclosed, there were places that were vacant, and everybody said, you're crazy to go out and put in sewer in this area because these places are gonna be vacant and you're not gonna collect any money. Why are you putting sewer in there?
Yeah.
Well, after we got it done, anything that was foreclosed, the bargain hunters go out and buy them because now they know they got sewer, and so now it's revitalizing.
Right.
So the area is revitalizing despite all of that. And so that can happen. And so, because the board for a long time was very worried about not having individuals that said, we're gonna move out and we're not gonna live there. Well, those that moved out, other people were right in line. You know what the housing market's like. Now they come right in, fix it up, add a bedroom, they got sewer, off they go.
Yeah.
And so those fears really didn't materialize.
No.
And so that's positive. So who knows?
No, the statements of they'll just tear it down, it'd be better just to tear the houses down than put the sewer in it. I've heard all that before. And
Well,
we had a guy that did
gives
tear
people
it
an
down.
opportunity.
we had a guy who's like,
He did bulldoze
They didn't
it.
want that.
out of spite, he bulldozed the
He bulldozed the
house.
house.
And he said he could have sold it, but he just out of spite, it didn't matter to him. He was bullheaded enough. I'm gonna tear it down rather than pay that bill. It's like,
Stuck to his guns, I guess.
yeah, at least he's principled. I
Okay.
guess, but
Guys, we're gonna move on.
Yep.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we're going to talk about a resolution of the county council determining the need and approving the lease for the Wells County Highway Garage. And Lisa and Roy's going to explain what we're doing here.
Okay, this is part of the highway garage project. So the commissioners had a hearing yesterday, and they didn't have any comment. But commissioners determined that the lease to finance the highway garage was appropriate, so they signed an ordinance. At the same time, we need a resolution from county council. So we need a resolution from county council determining that the new highway garage is needed and approved the proposed lease. Unlike the bond, the project will be financed through a lease between a building corporation and the county. So the building corporation will lease the highway garage to the county, and after the lease payments have been paid and then the bond money retired, then the building corporation will deed the property to the county. So the county will then own the highway garage. And if you have ever been involved with schools, that's typically how they finance school construction. They form a building corporation.
But we own that building corporation as a county, correct?
It's a separate entity,
Yeah.
but it was created by the county.
Has
Yeah.
it been created already?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so that
Okay.
part's
Yep.
done.
Been
Okay.
created, we've already had organizational meetings. The members are Michelle Sodervik, Luann Garten, and Steve Higgins.
Yeah.
So they've met, they've organized, they've approved the proposed lease. Commissioners approved the proposed lease, and now we need council to approve the lease.
Is it written into the building corporation that once the debt has been
No, that's
finished?
part of the lease.
Or part of the lease, when it's finished,
Yes.
it will
Yeah.
be
Refer back
moved,
to
it will be
Yeah, we
deeded
talked-
over to the
we-
county? Is that how it works?
Yeah,
Deeded
we
then?
talked about that because when we were looking for property to build the county highway garage,
Yeah.
we were looking at a site like Corning, and so
Yeah.
I was following GIS along the highway and saw, well, here's a jail, and the jail was owned by the jail building corporation.
When it was built originally?
Yeah, what the heck? I mean.
Is that building corporation still in existence then?
Was.
Okay, it never got dissolved?
Don't get ahead.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
So yeah, it's owned by a building corporation, and so I contacted, and Ice Miller did the bond work on that, so I contacted Ice Miller. I said, how come this wasn't deeded to the county? Well, so the building corporation had actually been administratively dissolved by the Secretary of State and file any annual reports.
Yeah.
But under Indiana law, you still have residual power to wind up your affairs.
Yeah.
And so, at least from the last building corporation report filed with the Secretary of State, I was able to locate the officers and get them to sign a quitclaim deed. So now the county owns the jail.
We own the jail.
But what
After
they were-
35 years.
How far back did that go? Like, how long ago should that have been done?
Oh, I don't know. When was it built? I mean, it was probably 20y years.
Whatever that lease.
Wow,
is.
That
okay.
was like
So-
35 years ago, I thought.
Yeah.
Quite a while ago. Okay.
So hey.
So a gap in time there.
So anyways, the Barnes and Thornburg attorney says, yeah, that kind of happens a lot. You get all excited and
You forget
get
about it
these leases and building corporations, and nobody's around who remembers to do that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'm probably not going to be around to say, hey,
Right.
when that's done, let's get.
I don't know about that.
So
Have a
anyways,
shorter bond issuance.
Yeah.
So we're still alive.
Okay.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the lease. I think we've all determined the need
Yeah.
already and have made motions in the past to that end, but this is the lease to the building corporation. Is that how you would say that?
the resolution says.
Resolution.
You're determining that the project is necessary, garage is necessary, and the lease arrangements, I think you're also approving the lease.
Because there's nothing in there about the dollar amount, it's just the avenue we're taking to go to this direction.
Yeah, the actual dollar amount will be determined when all is said and
Right.
done.
Yeah.
When the bonds are sold and the building corporation's got the money and we know
No
what the
value
interest
put on
rates
this
are.
then, this is
Yeah.
just strictly the commissioners recommend to go the avenue of the
Lease.
Yes.
lease.
Yes. And also, we talked about, that was part of the thing. Council, a long time ago, said we should not be in the business of running farms, And so commissioners are selling the county farm that's scheduled for November 8th,
Yes.
8 or 9,
Okay.
at the 4-H Park at 6:30. So hopefully, our guesstimate is hopefully we'll net a couple of $1 million. Then, they, at least when we were talking about selling it, the idea was that they were willing to at least think about committing that. Now, 2 of the 3 commissioners have been replaced since then, but at least that's not news, that the county officials would like to see that debt reduced.
As would I. Assume this council is on board with doing
Yeah.
that, so
Yeah, I mean, that was part of the deal.
that's what we had discussed.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion, unless there's any other questions.
Just what's the
on
resolution number?
2021-22.
I'll make a motion to have resolution 2021-22. The highway garage is necessary and we are approving the lease.
Second.
Give a motion and second.
Easier.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 7-0.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, next we are up to adopt the 2022 budgets that we had gone through back in August. First would be for the Wells County 2022 budget, adopted budget, so we just need motions to adopt the budgets that we had already gone through. Unless there's any other questions or concerns on these, or do you have comments, Lisa?
No.
Do we need to do each one separate?
Yeah,
We
let's,
do each one separate. Each one has a separate ordinance number.
Oh, it does, okay.
So the Wells County budget would be ordinance 2021-17.
Okay.
Solid waste would be 2021-18, and Rock Creek would be 2021-19.
What was Wells County on?
2021-17.
17.
Does anybody have any questions on these before we adopt what we've already?
I mean, everything at the end, Lisa, everything jived with our numbers that we were talking about.
The only, I do have a quick question, Lisa.
Yes.
And I don't have my budget book, but rainy day, did we not budget
We didn't
anything?
budget that.
Okay. I thought we did, so that's why I was just looking.
Any other questions before we look for a motion? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 2021-17 Wells County budget for the 2022 tax year.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. For the solid waste, any questions on that one? I'll entertain a motion for the solid waste district budget.
So moved.
We have a motion and second on the 2021-18 solid waste budget. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Okay, last one is the Rock Creek Conservancy, 2021-19 resolution. Need a motion to approve that.
So moved.
We have a motion, second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all approved. Okay, miscellaneous business. I think you all have a copy of the meeting dates, 2022. We don't need any motions there, do we?
We can make a motion, absolutely.
Motion to approve or any concerns over the meeting dates?
My only one is always July 5th. It's just high school moratorium, now I got one more year left. So, that's just me. So, we can leave it as is.
I did have a question on the Wednesday dates for May and November, and that's because Election Day is on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then obviously we don't have the August budget dates on here, do we?
Correct, we don't.
So those would be added.
Yep.
I would entertain a motion to accept the proposed dates for 2022.
So moved.
Have a motion? Any second?
I'll second.
Second. Any other concerns? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, well, the meeting date's approved. So we have a salary ordinance, and this is for,
This is the 2022 Wells County salary ordinance that you approved within the budget.
okay. So we've all gone through these numbers. Any discussion or concerns?
Like I said, we always figured Lisa's got it all figured out, because
Yes.
by the time we add them all in.
Right. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the salary ordinance for 2022.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So the last one is the surveyor.
I ask this every year, has he received his, is he registered land surveyor?
He is
yet?
not a registered.
So this is just
Yep.
in case that happens?
Yes,
Okay, that's
yes.
good.
Okay, so this is a compensation ordinance for the surveyor.
And it is ordinance 2021-21.
Okay. So everybody has that in front of them. And can you say that again, Lisa, if the surveyor is not, what's the proper terminology?
Not registered.
Registered.
Non-registered.
He is non-registered, so.
He
Just
is-
curious, I know we've done this, is this just a formality we were required to do under for a contract? Specifically for this, or is this something that's, I know it's in place in case he,
Gets registered.
yeah, in case he passes his courses and becomes registered, that it takes effect.
Yeah. IC code 36-2-12-15 requires counsel when fixing the compensation of county
I
officers.
think for survey, there is, we
Compensation.
have to
Something
do it.
special
There's
to
something
versus-
last year.
Yeah,
where we
I
had
know
to
the state
do it.
requires
State
it, but
requires.
until you get, I was
Till you
figuring,
get
do wait till you
registered.
get it, then you would do
Right.
it, but it's, I didn't know if that, no problem here, I mean, I'm just curious.
Maybe
why
just
that-
so it happens automatically. If he
Yeah.
gets it then, and doesn't have to come back before
We do
us.
it every year.
What's
so
the coursework to make a surveyor registered, do you know?
It's a
He's
lengthy
been,
process.
Is it?
and then he has to have so much time after he does his schooling to get
Yeah,
training.
yeah.
Like, he has
So-
to log so many hours of certain things, so that's what he's working on now.
I assume he's working on it.
Yeah,
So is
Okay,
it
good.
close, do you think, like next year, or hard to say?
yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Well, I mean, it's a significant bump if he
Yeah.
gets
Oh, yeah.
registered, so.
But it's by law, it's,
Mhm. And I know he worked with, old engineer,
He worked with Larry, he's done.
He worked
good
with
work
Larry, but
for the
nothing
highway
was-
department.
nothing
He's
was
got
logged.
2 exams and I think something over 2,000 hours of work he
Yeah.
has to do.
and everything he
So,
did with Larry wasn't logged, and, Larry can't log it.
Yeah, so,
yeah.
That's too bad.
so he's worked with me to try to get that, and he's worked with surveyors in the area.
So do you know how close he is?
I do not. I know that he can sit for one of the exams. COVID is causing some problems with the exam because they've got requirements during 8-hour tests that you're video monitored and you have to wear your mask for the full test. If you mess with the mask, they will void your exam.
Really?
So
Yeah.
he's like, I
Holy
think
cow.
I'll wait until I
Yeah,
have.
that's clear.
So he's.
Is that a state thing?
That is the story that I have been told from him, that is one of the reasons he's taking this
I
taking
think
these tests.
I'd get a hold of
It's
a
a little
representative about
Yeah, I
that.
was gonna say, that's a little extreme.
A trap, so,
Wow.
no, I wish him the best, I'm looking forward to seeing him get his test done, because he's certainly worth that. I mean, as a surveyor for you, I mean, Jared's a value to the county, and I wanna see him compensated appropriately for that, so.
Right, yeah, no, we all do, that'd be great if you could get that done. Okay, that said, just needing a motion to approve this ordinance 2021-21?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2021-21 for the county surveyor.
We have a motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Pass 7-0. Okay, that completes everything we had on our agenda. Does anybody from the council have anything else to bring up this evening? If not, anything from the audience?
It dwindled.
Okay. Hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We are.